I'm excited today to welcome Mary Brown, lead website strategist here at Impact, to have a conversation that I think is going to speak to a lot of businesses out there who, well, every business has a website, and every business knows that that website comes with tremendous opportunity, but also it's a challenge. It's a challenge to get right. It's a challenge to get your marketing right, your messaging right, your everything that you need for the website to do what it's supposed to do. So, Mary, first of all, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little sick, so I sound a little husky, and I apologize. It's the time of year when kids go back to school and they bring home with them, all sorts of plagues and curses. So I'm
That's
sick.
always
I don't
good for
know.
the audio, right? People like the huskiness. I feel like the cold
That's
actually
right.
enhances the voice.
Okay, so I'll just keep this from now on. Just a perpetual sickness, which is usually what happens. I have two children, and I think that by the time the disease goes from one of us to the next to the next to the next. By the time it gets to the fourth person, it's mutated enough that the first person can catch it again, and it's just the next 18 years will be pretty much like this.
Yeah, I feel that. I do. Yeah.
So Mary, I just want to start off with something really broad. You talk to business leaders all the time. And we work with, for those of you not familiar with Impact, we work with businesses in lots of different industries, B2B, B2C, lots of different sizes. If you were to generalize, how do business leaders typically feel about their websites?
This is a tough one to generalize, John, because there's definitely a range of people all over the place. So there are a lot of people who see a website as a set it and forget it kind of thing, where they just think, okay, we put a ton of time into it. Now we're good to go. So the leads are going to start pouring in. We'll just leave it alone and it's just going to be a lead machine. There are other people who are very intimidated by it and feel like it's a ton of work and they don't know where to start. There are some people who don't even care about the website, believe it or not. I have spoken to business leaders who don't care at all. They say, oh, we get all our leads from referrals or whatever. So they just don't put much thought into it at all. So it's definitely a very wide range.
And we know that a website can be a huge moneymaker for a business. It can also feel like a money pit that you throw a lot of money at. And like you said, wait for the leads to come in that might not actually materialize the way that you thought.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And so I get it. If you have the set it and forget it kind of mindset, then it's gonna be a money pit because it can cost a lot of money to make. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize about websites is when you build a website, you have a lot of hypotheses, and these hypotheses might be based on a ton of industry experience. Hi, this is my job. It might be based on best practices, which are always great. We call them test practices, and I'll tell you why. And it might be based on, all of the insight from clients or from the team or whomever. So there's a lot of good stuff that goes into it, but sometimes hypotheses are wrong. And it's totally normal. It happens, right? What works for one company might not work for another company. Somebody's great idea just doesn't pan out. But like I said, if you set it and forget it, then you're going to end up in trouble because it's not going to do the work you want. And you're just going to be mad at it and not really have the mindset of this thing isn't ever actually done. We've got to always be paying attention to it. We've got to always be optimizing it, running tests to figure out what does work when it doesn't work. And then that way, it feels less like a money pit.
Yeah, I love that because it does feel that the sort of dirty little secret of websites is that, as you said, they're based on a lot of guesswork. They're based on a lot of speculation. And if it's not something that you're revisiting frequently, that can really lead you down the wrong path. And if you're not paying attention, you can get farther down that path than you might think.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people think that just having a new website is enough to 10x their leads. It's not. If no one has ever said this out loud to you, it's not. Just having a new website isn't going to get new leads in. There's so much that goes into it, right? Are you creating the right content to bring people to your website is another huge aspect of making sure this thing is going to do its job. And then once they're there, do we have the right things in place to convert those people? And like we were talking about earlier, that stuff is something you always have to be looking at, testing, optimizing, changing. Even if you are converting at an 8% rate, wouldn't you rather convert at 12? Wouldn't you rather then convert at 16? You want to always be trying to improve and never lay it down. I know that can sound exhausting.
Yeah, but I think it's any company invests constantly in outreach and building an audience, and famously Coca-Cola, which is from my research, I read one time that people believe that Coca-Cola or Coke is the second most widely recognized word on the planet after okay. So it goes, and yet still Coca-Cola spends something like $10 billion a year on marketing, on advertising. And just as you're saying, you can't just build a new website and expect that everyone's going to turn up and be thrilled and read all the way through it and give you their money. It doesn't always work that way. In fact, it pretty much never works that way. So I love where this is going, but I want to back up for 1 second. I want to ask you one more thing about business owners or the businesses that we work with. When they come to us, do they typically have any kind of web expertise on staff? So you talked about that set it and forget it model. Businesses change, pages break, they need to update product listings or price, like any of that kind of stuff. Do businesses typically have that capability in-house, or are they finding a freelancer, going back to some agency that they worked with in the past? What's that setup typically?
So I will say we do work with a lot of people who have marketing team members who most likely maybe know how to edit pages, create new pages, change copy on the site, that type of thing. That is not uncommon, but it usually stops there. So before, when we were talking about actually reviewing analytics on the site or reviewing a tool like Google Search Console to understand if your website pages are actually showing up in Google Search, we don't see that a lot. And so it's not that marketers can't do that. It's just a lot of them don't have that kind of training to be able to do that. Web is kind of a funny thing, John, where before, when I was saying it sounds exhausting to do all of that, it's because people haven't always thought about that as a job. I feel like seeing like a web strategist type job on Indeed is a newer type of thing where we know we need advertising people. We know we need marketing and sales people. We know we need a designer maybe, but no one thinks of like, I need a person to do this full time, or a marketer who's really devoted to this on our staff. So they don't understand how much work it actually takes. So they really don't have that expertise on staff.
Interesting. And so do you see that progressing in the sense that that will become more normalized, or will it be something that gets, it's part of someone's role, or it's, we can't afford a full, I'm seeing businesses, they have to make choices with their budget and with their staffing. Is it going in that direction? Are we going to see more businesses that are smaller bring on a web strategist as an important team member?
Possibly. So I could see that happening. What I anticipate, John, happening more regularly is training a marketing person who's already working on the website. So if you have someone who kind of owns HubSpot, it would make sense for that person to learn how to create and build pages and learn about reviewing website analytics and optimizing things. So rather than just saying, hey, we should update the copy on that page, you're going to have someone who's able to say, well, actually, I looked at a heat map of the page and that's doing really well, or not doing really well. So rather than hiring a brand new person, I imagine training someone to be doing that, which we see a lot, and it actually works pretty well.
And that's interesting because what I hear you describing is being proactive instead of reactive. And for someone, rather than saying, oh my God, what happened to our traffic? Or, oh my God, this page is broken, they're on top of everything and acting ahead of time.
Yeah, John, that's exactly right. And I think part of where that can happen is I know a lot of companies outsource their website stuff to agencies, which is fine. I get why that happens. I know why a lot of people do that, but part of it can be with like, we don't want to deal with it. We just want to have someone else do it, which can be helpful when capacity can be an issue, but you're also beholden to, well, they have 30 clients and they can't make this 2-word copy update on my page today. I have to wait until next Tuesday for them to be able to get to me, or whatever that is. So there's the agency aspect, and there's also the aspect of them just not necessarily understanding everything that goes into it, like I said. So because you don't know what it takes, you don't know what you don't know. And that's one of the things I love teaching clients that we work with is the stuff that I do doesn't have to be incredibly intimidating. It can be something that you own and we can teach you how to do, for that marketing person on your team. That's always a really fun moment.
It reminds me of home ownership. That you have to develop certain competencies or you're going to run out of money really fast. And if you need to hire someone to change your light bulb or to, you know, update your circuit, like fix a circuit, like all those sort of small home improvement things. And what comes along with that competency is an awareness of where your expertise stops. And it does, as you said, make sense to hire an agency to build you a new site. But when it comes to regular metric review, when it comes to updates, page building, things like that, having those competencies in-house feels like a no-brainer, because if you're calling back the agency who has 30 other clients or the freelancer who works on the weekends, you are at their mercy. As you said, you're beholden to their schedules, and you're also beholden to what they charge. And the more desperate you are, the more people charge. That's just how it is.
It's absolutely true. So you're talking about having the competency. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is having a website that you can update. So what we're essentially talking about is ownership, right? We're talking about owning your website. So you need to have someone who understands how to manage and optimize a site. You also have to be able to, and that's another thing that I run into with some clients where there can be some frustration because the way their website is built, they can't make simple updates, which is heartbreaking. And I anytime I see this, it's just so frustrating for them because you shouldn't have to ask an agency or developer or someone to be able to make basic updates to your site. And I'm not talking about creating a new tool like a pricing calculator. Like, I don't do that, John. I don't build pricing calculators. Our developers do that. But I'm talking about any kind of copy update, any kind of building a new page or changing a photo or, changing the chatbot icon or whatever the thing is. You need to have your site be flexible enough that you can do that. And I'm not going to say that it's easy, right? For some people, if they've never done those types of things, there's definitely a learning curve, but you absolutely can learn how to do it as long as the platform itself is flexible. And that really gives you ownership by having those two things.
So that feels like a really important conversation to have with an agency who is building a new site. It's harder to do that about a site that already exists. But if you are talking to an agency about a redesign, that feels like a really important question to ask. To what extent will my website actually feel like mine? To what extent will I have ownership and control over the things that I need to, so that I don't have to ring you up every, few weeks to fix something?
Yeah, absolutely. You should be asking. So, if you know what CMS you want to build your site on, let's say we know we want it to be on HubSpot. Some people do. Other people just take the agency recommendation, right? The agency will say, we're going to build the site on WordPress. You should ask a lot of questions, such as why? Why is this right for us? To what kind of flexibility will we have? What are we going to be able to change on our own? What does that back end look like if I want to make edits? Are you going to train us on that type of thing? And what would we need a developer for? These are all things that we should be asking when it comes to that. You're exactly right. It's a hugely important conversation to have.
So just a reminder for everyone listening and watching, I'm talking to Mary Brown, who is the lead website strategist here at Impact, talking about the way that new web pages are built and the level of ownership that clients and businesses should have in those of over those sites, and the competencies they should have within their team to get the most out of their websites. So I want to go back to where we started, to wrap up. So the conversations that we're just talking about, the between a client a and an agency, talking about the sort of the way the site is built and how they can have ownership over it. You're sitting on the other side of the desk in those conversations. You are the strategist. You are part of the agency that they are coming to. Is that a conversation that people are ready to have? Are they prepared for it, or is that something that you find the impact team is having to kind of prompt and sell and say, like, this is really important? Or is that like, who's bringing that up?
So that can depend as well. Sometimes we have absolutely had clients come to us and say, help, we can't make any changes on our website and we desperately need to get out of that. And we know that you make, really flexible, easy to edit websites. So there are people who feel that pain, want to get away from that pain. There are others who have been more, happy to have other people do things for them. But I think in having conversations with Impact, they learn about the different approach we have because we're not for everyone, right, John? Impact is not the right agency for everyone because we do very much have a training and teaching mindset. So if someone comes to us and they aren't interested in how to better convert on their website, learning how to do those things or having that full ownership, if they don't want it, then they're not going to be right for us. And those conversations happen really early where we say, that's not how we do things. We want you to be able to make those edits. So again, it's a range, and it really depends on what people have an appetite for.
Yeah, that makes sense. So last question, or probably last question, depending on where this goes. If you're a business who is, as you were saying before, in a position where you wish you could make updates to your site and you can't for whatever reason, things are hard coded, like whatever it is, um, are you just kind of out of luck until you buy a whole new site? Like, are there ways that you can, um, I don't know, gain some semblance of ownership over your site so that you have some control, or do you just have to buy a whole new site?
This is a really tough question. And I feel like I've said this phrase a few times already, and it's everyone's favorite phrase, but it depends. So if I have just recently was working on a website that was very hard coded, and we took a look and said, we can't do anything with this. You just can't. Sometimes there is no retrofitting a website to be more flexible. There just isn't. It depends. If your site's built on Drupal or Expression Engine and things are super hard coded, you might be out of luck. So that's the bad news. Sometimes, we have seen client sites where they're built on HubSpot, and there might be some things we can do because HubSpot is a really user-friendly CMS. And a lot of HubSpot is drag and drop, and there are a lot of really good features. So there are some things that we can do to make that better, or to take an existing site and make it better. So it really depends on what your site looks like. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to give you the last word. If you have the ear of any small to medium sized business owner out there who knows all that a website can be, maybe feels like their current website isn't passing muster, it's not delivering what they hoped. What's your message there?
I don't want to be dramatic, John, but if you do not have full ownership of your site, and I'm talking about the flexibility to make the updates, and also your team has the training and expertise to be able to update it yourself, you're basically lighting your money on fire. And I know the image that comes with that, and it feels a little bit like hyperbole, but it's true. It's true because basically, what you have this thing that you probably spent a lot of money on, and if you don't know how it's performing, then there goes your money because you should be getting a return on this. Your website should be your very best salesperson. Period. It can work 24/7. It doesn't take holidays off or vacations. It is there to educate, it is there to move people down the funnel, to get them to convert. And if it's not doing that for you, it's not doing its job. So, why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And a sort of corollary to that is it can't do its job without the right content. It can't do its job if it's not organized in a way that's easy to understand for the people who come to your website. Remember that any potential customer, the easiest thing for them to do is to not spend money with you. It's so easy. It's so easy. So make it easy for them to actually become a customer. Get them the information that they need. Make your website easy to navigate to the extent that you can. If you can't, if you don't know, and if you're lost and this conversation resonated with you, you can always reach out to Mary here at Impact and talk to her about what's possible. But Mary Brown, lead website strategist here at Impact, thank you for your time, and we really appreciate your insights.
Pleasure to talk to you, John.